What if the greatest danger you've ever faced was never really there? Imagine it's the middle of the night. Your house is silent. Then, from somewhere in the darkness, you hear a sound. Instantly, your heartbeat accelerates. Your breathing becomes shallow. Every muscle in your body tightens. Nothing has appeared. No threat stands before you. And yet, your mind has already begun preparing for the worst. The same thing happens when your phone lights up with a message that simply says, "We need to talk." Before you've even opened it, your imagination races ahead. You picture bad news, rejection, failure, disaster. Within seconds, you've created an entire future that doesn't exist. Why? Why does the human mind so often fear what it cannot see? Why does uncertainty feel heavier than reality itself? And why, despite living in the safest period in human history, do so many of us still feel haunted by possibilities that may never happen? The answer begins millions of years before the first city was built, long before civilization, in a world where uncertainty could mean the difference between life and death. For our ancestors, the unknown wasn't an inconvenience. It was a constant threat. A sudden movement in the tall grass could be nothing more than the wind, or it could be a predator waiting to strike. There wasn't time to investigate every mystery. Generation after generation, evolution quietly favored brains that treated uncertainty as danger. Over countless thousands of years, those instincts became deeply woven into our biology. The result is a brain that would rather trigger 100 false alarms than miss the one threat that truly matters. That ancient survival system still lives inside every one of us. The world around us has changed beyond recognition, but our brains haven't changed nearly as quickly. Replaced by job interviews, medical tests, unanswered emails, difficult conversations, and uncertain futures. Yet the alarm system inside your mind responds in remarkably similar ways. Today, uncertainty rarely threatens your life. Instead, it threatens your sense of control. An unread message becomes a possible breakup. A delayed phone call becomes terrible news. A meeting with your boss becomes a fear of losing your job. The less information your brain has, the more eagerly it begins filling in the blanks. And because evolution rewarded caution, those imagined stories usually lean toward the darkest possibilities. The strange part is that your brain isn't trying to make you miserable. It's trying to protect you. Hidden deep inside your brain is a remarkable structure called the amygdala, one of evolution's oldest and fastest survival systems. Think of it as your internal smoke detector. Its job isn't to prove that danger exists. Its job is to notice anything that might be dangerous and sound the alarm before it's too late. That's why fear often arrives before reason. The moment something uncertain happens, the amygdala reacts almost instantly. It doesn't wait for evidence. It doesn't ask whether your fears are realistic. It responds to possibility. Within moments, stress hormones begin flooding your body. Adrenaline increases your heart rate. Your breathing changes. Your muscles prepare for action. Cortisol sharpens your focus, pushing your attention toward anything that might represent a threat. Only after this emergency response has already begun does the more rational part of your brain step in to evaluate what's actually happening. Sometimes it confirms that the danger is real. More often, it discovers there was never anything to fear at all. But by then, your body has already experienced the emotional storm. Another remarkable part of your brain, the hippocampus, joins this process by searching through your memories for similar experiences. It looks for patterns, asking a simple question: have we seen something like this before? If you've ever been embarrassed during a presentation, rejected after an interview, or received bad news unexpectedly, those memories become reference points. Even if today's situation is completely different, your brain may treat it as strangely familiar. Past experiences begin coloring present uncertainty, convincing you that history is about to repeat itself. It's an incredibly efficient survival strategy, but it's far from perfect. Your brain wasn't designed to predict the future with complete accuracy. It was designed to maximize survival. From an evolutionary perspective, making a false prediction carried very little cost. Running away from a harmless rustle in the bushes wasted only a little energy. Ignoring a real predator could cost your life. So evolution built a system that consistently errs on the side of caution. Scientists call one part of this tendency the negativity bias. Negative experiences leave deeper impressions than positive ones. One painful memory can outweigh dozens of pleasant ones. That's why you can vividly remember a single embarrassing mistake from years ago, while struggling to recall countless moments when everything went exactly as planned. This bias quietly shapes the way you experience uncertainty. A missed phone call feels more threatening than reassuring. An unopened email seems more likely to contain criticism than praise. One unanswered question becomes another, and then another, until your thoughts begin circling endlessly around possibilities that exist only inside your imagination. The irony is almost heartbreaking. Most of the futures your mind creates never happen. Yet every imagined disaster feels real enough to activate the same ancient survival circuits that once protected our ancestors from predators lurking just beyond the edge of the firelight. And when those imagined dangers continue day after day, something subtle begins to happen. Fear stops being a brief response to uncertainty and slowly transforms into something much more powerful. Anxiety is different from fear in one important way. Fear responds to something happening now. Anxiety responds to something that might happen tomorrow, next week, or years from now. It is fear stretched into the future. The challenge is that your brain doesn't always distinguish between a genuine threat and a vividly imagined one. If you picture yourself failing, being rejected, or receiving devastating news, many of the same neural circuits activate as if those events were already unfolding. Your body prepares for a battle that exists only inside your mind. That's why anxiety often becomes loudest when the world grows quiet. Late at night, when distractions disappear, your thoughts have room to wander. One question becomes 10. 10 become 100. What if I fail? What if they don't like me? What if something goes wrong? Each unanswered question branches into another possibility until your mind is trapped inside an endless loop of predictions. Psychologists call this rumination, replaying the same fears without discovering new answers. The more those thoughts repeat, the stronger the neural pathways supporting them become. Eventually, your brain begins mistaking familiar thoughts for familiar dangers. But prediction is not reality. Most of the disasters your imagination rehearses never happen. Most difficult conversations end better than expected. Most interviews don't become catastrophes. Most uncertain moments eventually reveal themselves to be far less frightening than the stories we invent. Still, our ancient survival system continues doing exactly what it evolved to do: prepare us for the worst, just in case. Fortunately, evolution didn't stop with fear. The human brain possesses another extraordinary ability, one that may be even more remarkable than its instinct to survive. It can change. Modern neuroscience calls this neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reshape itself throughout your entire life. Every experience strengthens some neural pathways while allowing others to weaken. Your brain is constantly updating itself based on what you repeatedly do, think, and experience. That means the fear circuits you've spent years reinforcing are not permanent. Every time you avoid uncertainty, your brain learns that the situation must have been dangerous. But every time you face uncertainty and discover that you are safe, something different happens. Your prediction system quietly updates itself. The first time you speak in front of an audience, your heart may pound so hard it feels impossible to think. The 10th time, you're still nervous, but you manage. The 100th time, the same experience feels almost routine. The uncertainty hasn't disappeared. Your brain has simply learned that uncertainty isn't the same as danger. Confidence doesn't come from eliminating fear. It comes from giving your brain enough evidence to stop expecting disaster. This is why therapists often use gradual exposure when helping people overcome anxiety. Rather than avoiding what frightens us, we approach it in small, manageable steps. Each successful experience becomes new evidence that challenges the brain's old predictions. Slowly, the balance begins to shift. The prefrontal cortex, the thoughtful, rational part of your mind, gains greater influence over the amygdala's alarm signals. Controlled breathing slows your body's emergency response. Mindfulness gently returns your attention from imagined futures to the present moment. Knowledge replaces uncertainty. Experience replaces assumption. Little by little, the brain rewrites its own expectations. Many of the fears that once seemed enormous begin to shrink the moment they're finally confronted. Not because the world suddenly became safer, but because your brain discovered it had been overestimating the danger all along. Perhaps the greatest misunderstanding about courage is believing that fearless people simply don't experience fear. They do. The difference is that they no longer allow uncertainty to make every decision for them. Every meaningful chapter of your life began with something you couldn't predict. Your first day at school, your first close friendship, your first job, falling in love, starting over after failure. Every opportunity that shaped who you are once existed as a question mark, waiting in the distance. If certainty had been required before taking the first step, none of those moments would have happened. No explorer would have crossed an unknown ocean. No scientist would have tested an impossible idea. No inventor would have risked failure to create something new. Every discovery, every breakthrough, and every achievement began with someone choosing to move forward despite not knowing what would happen next. The unknown has always been the birthplace of progress. Fear, then, is not your enemy. It is an ancient companion that has traveled beside humanity for millions of years, doing everything it could to keep us alive. Without it, our ancestors might never have survived long enough to build the world we know today. But the same system that once protected us can also become the very thing that limits us. When every uncertain path looks dangerous, we stop exploring, we stop growing, we choose familiar discomfort over unfamiliar possibility. We remain in places we've already outgrown simply because our brains mistake the unknown for a threat. Yet life has always asked something different of us. Growth has never lived inside certainty. It lives beyond it. The next time your heart races before an important conversation, a new opportunity, or a life-changing decision, remember what your brain is really doing. It isn't predicting your future. It's replaying an ancient survival strategy written for a world that no longer exists. You don't have to silence that voice completely. You simply don't have to let it make every choice. Because on the other side of uncertainty isn't just risk. It's discovery. It's resilience. It's confidence earned through experience. And it's every version of yourself that can only exist after you've taken the step your brain was trying to avoid. The unknown is not the opposite of safety. More often than not, it's the beginning of everything that makes life worth living.